Hi, I'm Pam, and I would like to welcome you to the Live Authentically show. My team and I help other people step into their authentic realities via a number of different modalities. This show is obviously one of them. We also have a Facebook group of like minded people committed to spiritual growth and transformation, and would love to have you join us there. We can be found at liveauthentically.today/FB. I also am super pumped. I just launched my first book this year. It's called Soar, and it's on Amazon, and it's actually right behind me. So check that out. It's a spiritual journey through my divorce process and shows how I partnered with the universe to create my new reality. So I am super pumped that on today's show, I have with me Bridget Shannon and Dana Barron. Good morning.
Good
Morning.
morning.
Thanks for having us, Pam.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank
so much
you.
for joining me. I'm so pumped about today's conversation. Today, we are going to be talking about intuitive eating and body image. And I know that this is a topic that really resonates with so many people. It resonates with me at a deep level because I've had, experience just personally firsthand, just kind of walking through some of these issues before. So I'm super excited to dive in, and my goal is to give people some concrete takeaways. Like, how can they enhance their relationship with themselves? How can they enhance their relationship with food and reframe it and view it in a different light? So super excited about our conversation today. But before we dive in, I always start my shows off with the same question. And that question is, what does it mean to you to live authentically every day? And Dana, I'll ask you to answer first if you would mind. We'll have her be the guinea pig. Does that sound okay, Bridget?
Of course.
What does it mean to live authentically every day? I think it just means to be honest with yourself, right? And try to live in alignment with your values. Really,
Yeah,
as a short answer
I
to a
love
big
it.
question.
Yeah, I love it though. Yeah, I love brevity, simplicity. I mean, that really does cut right to it. So thank you. And Bridget, how would you answer that question?
Yeah, I think very similarly. I would say recognizing like what it actually is that you want and how you do want to live and putting your intention there versus all the expectations that fall on us and all of the standards that we think we're supposed to live up to and kind of rooting in what you want and what you find to be true.
I love that. And I know for virtually everybody that I've talked to, there's been kind of a long and winding road to get to that place of authenticity. I don't think I know anybody, I've ever encountered anybody who's just woken up and felt like they're living their authentic life and hasn't had any hurdles or barriers to overcome. So I'd also like to ask each of you, what was the biggest barrier that you had to overcome on your journey to authenticity?
Ooh, I think when we think about our lens, right, with food and body image, that is absolutely up there with the top challenges in terms of living authentically. Because when you're struggling, like I did and like Dana did with disordered eating and with struggling with your body and struggling with your weight and how you look, it's really really hard to live authentically when you're caught up in that struggle because you are living in a way where all of your efforts and all of your energy and all of your mind space is going toward improving your external appearance, right? And improving what you think you need to do in order to be happy and confident and live a life that feels meaningful and good. And turns out that wasn't actually the right formula for me, right? That wasn't the solution that was going to make me happy. It wasn't this constant hamster wheel of trying to lose weight or fix the way I look in order to be happy. It was really, a different paradigm and stepping out of that dieting paradigm altogether. So I would say that was absolutely the biggest hurdle in terms of getting to a place of living authentically, because not only was it such a barrier to what I wanted and what I, thought wanted my life to look like, but also in terms of the work that we do too. It was, stepping into this fully has required a lot of our own dealing with our own shit and working through our own struggles with food and body image in the past.
Sure, I love that. Thank you. Yeah, Dana, did you want to add anything? I didn't want to jump in, but do you want to add anything?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, for me, it was just dieting. Absolutely, was the number one barrier. It started for me in late adolescence and went through my mid 20s. And when you're just perpetually hungry all the time, you're so distracted, right? You're so distracted from life, and battling food in your body every day is a really great way to, you know, to numb and quiet your intuition and to be distracted from, the actual spiritual undercurrent of what's going on in your life. And it's a good way to dissociate from your feelings. So, if you're not really in your life because you're not in your body, because you hate it and view it as temporary, it's really hard to be present and honest with yourself and really get in touch with your feelings and intuition. So for me, hands down, dieting and body hate were the biggest obstacle to just being who I am. So for sure.
I love that. And I too can relate to that. I mean, firsthand, I've been kind of on this, kind of had an unhealthy relationship with my body image for a long time that I had to overcome. And I was trying to like tweak this and, and change that. And it wasn't until I finally, I got really honest with myself and said, you know what, it's not about what it looks like on the outside. It's about how you feel from the inside, right? It's about doing the work from the inside out. And then when you do the work from that place, everything else just flows naturally, right? Then you radiate beauty from every aspect of your being. But I really had to do a lot of work to take the focus off of the physical self and shift it to the inner self, my higher self, my inner being. So I'd love to explore that. I'd love to hear about your experience and how you help people to reframe or to change, what they're looking at, right? To take their focus off of just their physical appearance and help them understand that, there's so much more. Their spiritual being is really, really what drives every aspect of our existence.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much, there's so much to get into, but the basis of all the body image work we do is really shifting that perception, like you said, to recognize that body image is a mindset. It is not on the scale. It's not in the mirror. Like your body image is made up of the internalization of all your beliefs about self-worth and our appearance and everything society tells us, all of our sort of fat phobic biases and just so many different things that are internalized. So that's where the work needs to happen, right? It's not, nipping and tucking or chiseling or losing, right? That improves your body image because as any, we deal mostly with women. So if any, woman has lost a significant amount of weight, has been successful in the short term, quote unquote, in dieting, and still been picking her body apart in the mirror, it's just the perfect reinforcement of this idea, right? That any person in any body, regardless of how well it meets our cultural beauty standards, can battle body image issues, right? So it's not the size and shape or ability or age or color or any of those things of our body. It's what we've internalized about what all of that means, that our body image is derived. So that's really where the work needs to happen.
Right. I agree. And I would like to echo that it really can impact any person at any demographic, any age, any size. I mean, I did a fitness competition. There was a time when I was, single digit body fat. Obviously, I don't recommend it, not healthy, not, sustainable for the long term. But point being is I still felt fat at certain points during that journey when I was in single digit body fat. And, I was not in a great place mentally with my relationship with myself and my body and how I'm wondering, and just again, I understand what that feels like, to everyone else, I was, looked amazing, but to myself, I looked in the mirror and still all I zoned in on were the things I wanted to change. So what is your first step? Let's just say someone came to you who, and they're feeling like they're at rock bottom, they hate the way they look. Where do you start? I mean, there's so much there. How do you start to unpack that?
Doing the dance of who wants to jump in.
Yeah.
Well, you said the key phrase there, which is rock bottom, right? And we really have to look at the behaviors and the amount of mind space and time that this is taking up in our lives. And, even if you are in a body that you were working toward or at, something like a goal weight, we have to look at what cost, right? At what cost is this worth? And looking at how much damage that it's doing and how much harm it's causing us. And we work with women who are at that rock bottom place of saying, I cannot do this anymore. I cannot go on another diet anymore. I cannot spend one more minute counting calories or macros or points or whatever your mechanism is. So the first step is really saying, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to live like this anymore, and realizing the damage that it's doing, being stuck in that dieting cycle, and decide to do things differently, right? And that's where, support is so key and comes in, because it's really hard to get out of that place alone. It's possible, but it's so much easier with support. So I think the very first step is making the decision that you don't want to do it anymore and that you want to do things a different way. Because when we're in that place, we don't really realize that there is a different way. You're so stuck in that cycle and so caught up in the dieting mindset that we don't even realize that healing our relationship with food and our body is possible. It feels like this is the only way. So understanding there is another way, there is a different way to do things, and we can talk about what that looks like, but just making the decision, I think, that it's not working, right? That if it was going to work, it would have by now.
Right, exactly. And, I'd like to echo what you said there too. Sometimes, we can be so caught up in it, in that lifestyle, and just, we get used to doing what we do. And particularly if we're surrounding ourselves with other people who reinforce that. When I competed, I was surrounded by other people who were doing more of the same. So, I think our perception of the world, or the way, we need to be living, gets a little bit warped depending on who we surround ourselves with. So and I absolutely want to move into, how do we change our relationship with our body image and our food, and what are some healthy habits? But let's just start in kind of that unhealthy place, kind of that rock bottom, and color in a little bit. What are some of the behaviors and habits and thoughts and patterns that people may be experiencing that, again, maybe unbeknownst to them, that are kind of either putting them on that unhealthy path, or maybe they're already there? What are some barometers or indicators that, that people could, how can we bring some self-awareness around this, I guess is what I'm getting at, to, hey, give some things people can identify with. Hey, I keep thinking that, or I keep doing that. So what are some of the recurring or common issues you see people come to you with?
Sure. The number one issue we see among all of our clients is a sense of feeling out of control around food, that they're stuck in this, what we call the diet binge cycle, which is either you are physically restricting your food in some way. And we should also preface this with the fact that we see any type of trying to control through external rules, any way of eating that you're emotionally attached to, like pass fail, I'm being good, I'm being bad. We see that as disordered, right? Because we believe in intuitive eating. So what we usually see is women coming to us just feeling like, I can't stick to anything. I'll be good for a while and then I'll blow it, right? I'll be really good and I'll lose some weight and then I'll go crazy and I'll eat everything in my cupboards, right? I feel so out of control. I'm eating alone in my car, so a partner doesn't see it. I will finish everything and, everything on the counter after my kids go to bed. I'm eating cookies in the closet so nobody will see me. Just like feeling really out of control and crazy around food. That's the number one thing we see. And then also, all of the body image moments that are challenging. You get tagged in a picture of on Facebook and your stomach drops. Do I really look like that? I hate my thighs, Getting dressed every morning is a nightmare. Nothing in your closet fits or feels comfortable. You're beating yourself up at night, all the different ways that you failed on your diet that day. When you look in the mirror, you just think and say the meanest things to yourself that you would never say to anybody else. And like we said, that rock bottom piece is really important in our work, because unless you feel like you have to find a new way to relate to food in your body to ever feel happy and confident, like unless you have that inner pull that like, I just can't do this anymore, you're probably not there yet. You're probably not ready to let go of that great diet hope just yet. So that's kind of where the people are who come to us.
Okay. I love that. And, I can definitely identify with some of the things, because again, over the years, when I was at that single digit body fat percentage, that sort of, now everything else is relative to that, right? So it's like, you kind of run the risk of going down that path of body dysmorphia. And like, that was my new baseline, right? So, it's definitely, it can definitely be challenging. And those
Yeah.
behaviors can get out of control sometimes with
Mm-hmm.
taking, progress pictures is obviously, I've been able to get to a healthy place with that, but, that can get sort of out of control too sometimes with, with anything in excess, obviously, can be an issue. So what I'd love to talk about now is the shift. So that's what some of the things that, those are some of the things that you see when people come to you. Then where ideally would you like them to get? Can you paint a picture of what kind of a healthy relationship with body image and food looks and sounds like?
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So with food, we'll start there because that's really the first place we start with our clients because that's the foundation for how you're feeling in your body. That's really healing that relationship is really the foundation for this work because we have to eat, right? We all have to eat and that's sort of at the forefront of our pain around this challenge, right? If you're in a place of like trying to figure out what to eat every day or following those external rules or guidelines, we have to get back to an intuitive place with food. So the goal really is leading with our intuitive cues around food. So blocking out all of the noise, all of diet's rules, all of the restriction is the big thing that we're really lifting here and just allowing food and giving yourself full permission to eat, which is pretty revolutionary for a lot of women who struggle with this, right? So making peace with food. And we teach intuitive eating, which is an actual framework. So it's not like we're just saying, give up the dieting and then you're just kind of floating around trying to figure it out, right? We have an actual framework to walk through, they're not hard and fast rules. They're just sort of guidelines or guideposts to help you in this process. So we start with intuitive eating, blocking out all of the external rules and guidelines and starting to trust our own body's cues around food. So really getting to a place of listening to what our body is telling us, which we can only do when we give up all the restriction and give up all the rules. Because if we still have that voice in the back of our head, that food police telling us what to eat or when or how much, it makes it really, really hard to listen to our own body. So I would say definitely the first part of our program, if not the majority of the program for a lot of people, is really tuning out that diet voice and really starting to listen to our own cues again and start to trust our body, which is the whole point of this process. But that's sort of the first step here is getting in touch with your intuitive cues, what it feels like to actually eat, actually be tuning into that versus, all the rules and to let go of the guilt and the shame around food, because that's what keeps us stuck in that cycle is I ate this when I shouldn't have, or I ate too much. We have to really challenge those voices that pop into our head around food.
And so what does a healthy dialogue sound like when someone gets to a place where they're in a they have a good relationship with their body image? What are some things that the clients, that you find people start to tell themselves that can encourage them along that path?
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest improvement sort of in the body image area is getting to a place where you truly respect your body. Because I think and this is specifically for the body image work, but when we're in a place of body hate and restrictive eating and dieting, we tend to think we want to jump to like this body love, body positivity, right? Which is a really unrealistic jump for most women, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you are battling your body day in and day out, if you've seen your body as wrong for decades, it is very hard to just post a picture of your belly rolls and say, I love my body, right? Like that's just not a realistic jump. And what I think is overlooked a lot of times is that we need to get to a place of neutrality and just basic respect for our bodies first, right? So a lot of the women who come to work with us, they don't feel good about body positivity. They think it's fake. They think everybody's bullshitting themselves. Those women are lying to themselves, right? So if we can shift them to a place where like, I respect and appreciate my body, regardless of how I think it looks, I'm going to meet its basic needs. I'm going to treat it with dignity. I am not going to insult myself all day long. I'm going to appreciate, my arms for being able to hug my loved ones. I'm going to, recognize that my body is part of my spiritual being and who I am. It's not an ornament to look perfect for the world to view. right? So it's not necessarily this arrival place, and everybody's specific language and thoughts around their bodies will be different. But like one of my favorite ones from a recent client was like her sort of body respect mantra became like, I'm strong and I'm healthy and I eat what I want. And like that's where she's at. And it feels fantastic to her after decades of battling herself and insulting herself with, just body shame. So it's just this idea that the more we focus on our physical appearance, regardless of who we are or what body we're in, the more dissatisfied we will be with our physical appearance. So we're really shifting the goalposts, not to get to a place where I think I'm beautiful and that is why I feel confident. It's because there's so much more to me than how I look. And I really respect my body for carrying me through life. And I feel physically well in my own skin, right? So it's not this ideal, like, I just think the body positivity in the way it's been co-opted has led us to believe we need to love how we look. And it's really shifting the goalpost to respecting our bodies for everything it does other than how we look, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And, you're so right, just with appreciating our body for what it can do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rather for what it can do and, that it's strong. And like you said, it has, I have arms to hug my loved ones, et cetera. But that can be, it can be challenging to get to that place. I know.
Absolutely.
And I'm wondering and this is sort of an extreme scenario, but I'm wondering if you've encountered this before. Have you ever encountered a client who wishes they had a different body type? For example, like a mesomorph, for example, who comes to you and says, I wish I were, tall and lanky, like a, Victoria's Secret supermodel. Do you ever find someone wishing they had a different body type?
I think everyone
probably
every woman
say 100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, okay, interesting.
Yeah. Well, every woman that comes to us feels that her body is wrong and she's viewing it as temporary until she makes it right through dieting.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So regardless of whether it's a smaller version of your own body or being taller or being, blonde or whatever it is, their bodies are wrong in their view.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because of their failure to diet well.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So yeah, I would say pretty much everyone. Yeah, I didn't know if that's where you wanted me to stop, but I was going to go into our 4 steps because I feel like we've been dancing around it, but we actually do have like a 4-step framework that we lead people through to improve their body image.
I would absolutely love to hear it. Yeah, I kind of wanted to just lay the foundation and hear some of the background first, but absolutely. Let's hear the 4 steps.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I just didn't know. I was about to just get going. And I was like, maybe she doesn't want to talk about it yet.
It's about you. So whatever you want to talk about. Absolutely.
Sure. So yeah, like, because we've touched on a few of these issues, right? The body neutrality and the body respect, but we have, and actually we do have a free video training series that's how to stop hating your body, actually. And we sort of go in depth into these there. And then we also coach in our program around them. But there's 4 pieces to this that, we have found, and the data and the research shows us actually helps us to move towards an authentic, positive body image, right? To build resilience, right? So the idea is not to totally eradicate shaky body image moments or reach some level of perfection around our body image, because that doesn't really exist, but it's to actually move forward along really building a sturdy, solid, positive body image. And there's 4 pieces. So I'm sure, Bridget, you can talk about some of them as well. But the first one we start with is something called cultural criticism. And that is, we learned a lot about this from Dr. Michelle Lilwicka. She wrote the book, The Religion of Thinness. And it's essentially to wake up, and you touched on this talking about the people around you when you were in the bodybuilding or, that arena, how it really starts to impact you, what other people's behaviors and beliefs and goals and stuff start to affect you. And on a cultural level, that's absolutely true, right? Like we are taught, especially as women in our culture, that thinness is going to be our salvation, right? And this idea has been reinforced in us our entire lives, right? We have these rituals and these routines around dieting in our bodies, and we have idols that we put on these pedestals, like the supermodels you mentioned. And there's that promise of salvation. Once we're thin, life will be great. Once I'm thin, I'll be confident. and energetic, and I'll find love and I'll be successful, and it's always connected to like, I'll be rich too, right? We have this like thin fantasy version of ourselves in our head. So the idea of cultural criticism is just to wake up to this and to recognize that we didn't come out of the womb hating our bodies and trying to make them smaller. We've been taught this by our culture from the moment we arrived here. So of course we feel this way. So until we can start to challenge these messages that we're consuming all day long in all different varying forms of media around us, we can't protect ourselves from them. We can't actually think critically as intelligent adult women and say, is that true? Do I believe I have to look like that woman to have a confident, happy, fulfilling life? Like, is that what health has to look like? Is that what success has to look like? And really breaking that down to understand that like we have these subconscious beliefs and that's why we're suffering. So if we can challenge and change them, it goes a really long way to helping us feel more comfortable in our own skin and lay down our arms, to not be battling ourselves all the time. So that's the first piece, is the cultural criticism.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And I'd love to hear the other, you said there's a 4-step process. Yeah. I'd love to hear the other ones. And then I'd like to circle back and dive into social media, because that was kind of one of the other areas I wanted to talk about. Yeah. So let's go through the other steps and then we can circle back to that.
Love that.
Yeah, we can kind of alternate on and off here. But the second part is all about our personal beliefs and stories that we're telling ourselves, right? So we have the culture, like Dana talked about, and we have, all of these messages that we're constantly bombarded with on a daily basis from our society that values a very narrow standard of beauty, right? We look at all of these varying levels of it: thinness, ableism, young, white, there's just so many levels of this, but that's sort of what we're getting on a cultural level. Then we bring it into our personal beliefs. So we have to look at our individual upbringing and the conditioning that we have. And it sounds like you do some work with mindset. So I'm sure your community is versed in this, but we look at those subconscious beliefs and we look at what circumstances from our childhood or beliefs from our upbringing were kind of cemented in our subconscious at a very young age, right? So for many people who have struggled with food and body image, that looks a lot like a parent who is always dieting, or being told that, being attractive is the most important thing that you can be, or, young or like girls are pretty and small and quiet, right? All of these beliefs that we are kind of imprinted with at a very young age, we look at how they're affecting us later on, and why as adults we're struggling with food and body image, right? So we have to really start looking at what those beliefs are, really identifying them. We rarely take the time to actually identify the operating system that we're currently running on. And then we start to challenge them and change them so that they're actually serving us. And that's sort of a whole framework in and of itself, how to actually shift those limiting beliefs. But that's the second step here, is really looking, what beliefs do I actually hold and how can I start to challenge them both in the moment, and look at, when I have a shitty thought about my body, how do I shift that in the moment? And then also proactively, what do I actually want to believe? And how do I start to work toward a better mindset that is actually empowering me versus constantly bringing me down and constantly keeping me stuck in this dieting cycle?
I love that.
You want to jump into the third one?
Sure. So we touched on it a little bit, but it's the combination of, we call it body respect, but it's really the combination of acceptance, appreciation, and respect. And this is where we're actually like, and most of this is just in our minds, right? Some of it is in the actually taking care of our physical bodies, but it's this idea of, setting aside the hate and not worrying about the love just yet, but accepting where our bodies are today, because resisting them, viewing them as temporary, you can't feel at home in a place that you see as temporary, right? So accepting that this is the body you're in today, right? And you can't change it, right? You can't lose X number of pounds overnight, right? You can't, do anything about the body you're in today. So let's just be in the present moment with our bodies today. And then that respect, how am I actually treating myself? Am I treating myself like a lump of clay that needs to be molded as if it's something other than me, right? An ornament? Or am I treating it as like a friend, someone I'm in a relationship with, someone I have to take care of, right? So am I meeting my basic needs? Am I eating enough? Am I sleeping? Am I getting fresh air? Am I calling friends when I'm lonely? Like, am I drinking water, right? Am I eating any vegetables? Like, am I physically taking care of myself and meeting my body's basic needs? And then that appreciation piece we talked about, really starting to appreciate each part of your body. And there's exercises around this you can do, like body scans and sending different places in your body love, or just like thinking about how each different part of your body has shown up for you and carried you through life. Something as simple as your heart beats without having to ask it to. So these are more on the proactive side of really starting to look at how you are treating the body you have today and asking if it's with respect and dignity and appreciation. So that's the third piece. And that's actually, like, statistically, that body appreciation piece is the biggest. It really has the biggest impact on moving us towards that positive body image, for sure.
Okay. Thank you.
And then the fourth, yeah, the final step of this framework here is all about embracing body neutrality. And Dana touched on this a little bit earlier in our conversation, but this is really this idea that you do not need to think that every inch of your body is beautiful 24/7 in order to love and respect it, and that there are so many other wonderful, important things about you that are meant to be nourished and celebrated and supported. And really, what we're so passionate about this piece in particular, because women spend so much time and energy and mind space on trying to improve our bodies, when there are so many other more meaningful pursuits that we could be thinking about, right? I mean, the average woman, if we look at the statistics, the average woman spends around 50% of her mind space thinking about food and her body. And that's an enormous amount that could be dedicated to other things. When you look at the state of our world, we could use a little more thought going towards certain areas, right? So we really believe that the more women who are less concerned with how they look and more focused on making their lives meaningful and impacting the world in a positive way, we would just have such a different world, right? Because we are all kind of staying small and holding back because of this issue. And so body neutrality is all about separating your worth as a person from your weight or your physical appearance, and really starting to bring a little more neutrality into that so that we can shift our thoughts and our focus toward other things versus this staying stuck in this constant pursuit of thinness or of changing the way that we look.
I love that. Thank you. And that is the perfect segue, perfect layup to kind of where I wanted to go next. I wanted to talk about social media, and I'm going to kind of just lay it up here and throw some things out and just kind of let you take it from there and chime in on whatever you'd like to. But, one of my observations is kind of when I'm out on social media, Instagram, just looking at what's out there, truthfully, it actually makes me a little sad that there is so much focus on the physical appearance. And yes, I think that's important. I mean, that was a huge piece of my spiritual growth and transformation was the physical piece. It's hard. We can't, we're a multidimensional being, right? We have our physical selves, our mental selves, emotional selves, spiritual selves. And so it's hard to extricate any one of those pieces and view it in isolation. But, so feeling good about the skin, feeling good about yourself in the skin that you're in is so important. And sometimes we need to make certain, improvements to get there, to feel good about who we are. But I'm just seeing a lot of hyper focusing now on the physical self in the way, particularly I'm talking about, plastic surgery. I'm not, again, no judgment. What everyone decides to do with their body is their business. But again, it makes me a little sad that there is so much focus on the physical self and that need, because it's such a slippery slope, right? Once you go down that path, I'll be happy when, after I get the nose job or whatever, I'll be happy after I, have this tucked here or whatever. And it's just a path it's sort of a self-defeating path. There really is no end to it unless we reframe and refocus what we're looking at. So I'm just wondering if you can comment a little bit on, and again, I say this with no judgment, and this is a little edgy territory because, we're talking about plastic surgery. We're talking about, improvements or modifications that people make to their bodies, but it just elicits sadness for me to think that people are so hyper-focused on their physical self. So I'd love to hear you weigh in a little bit on social media and what role you think social media may be playing in fueling this mentality that keeps us hyper focused on our physical selves.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, there's no judgment. Like we have been there, we understand. And if you look at the culture that we're in, it makes perfect sense that people want to have plastic surgery. It makes perfect sense that changing your physical body would impact your self-worth and your self-esteem and your confidence in this world. Like it makes total sense. And we also believe however people want to do that is great for them. Like we're not critical of people who do diet. We're here for the people who can't do it anymore, and we want to help those people, but we fully understand. It's interesting because we actually just talked about this with Dr. Lelwicka as well. The idea that, social media on the one hand can be a super positive thing. Like we've certainly found our people, we've learned so much from mentors and colleagues on social media. There are so many great messages circulating. We have access to so much more information. Just even when I think about like our mother's generation and, how deeply rooted in just like the fear of fat in our diets and, all the old school, like really overt diet culture stuff, like they didn't really have an alternative. They didn't have as much information as we did, right? So we can send them compassion. So social media certainly has a lot of positives. And of course, we need to market our business on social media as well. The problem, I think, is in the sort of the uniformity and like the ubiquity of it, right? Like it just really amplifies our cultural standards of beauty, right? And of course, there are areas where diversification and celebration of different body types is happening. But I'd say by and large, when you think of sort of like the cult like following of the Kardashians and how that has like impacted little girls' body image, right? And filters, right? There's this sort of what is the word I'm looking for? Virtual reality now, where we're not seeing real people anymore. We're seeing face tunes of other people. And the real heartbreaking part of it is that, at least in our mother's generation, they were really focused on the celebrity culture because that's what they saw. But nowadays, I also have to compare myself to the woman down the street who has 4 kids and is in a smaller body and looks like her life is perfect on social media. So I'm not just comparing myself to the 5% of celebrities. I'm now also falling short of my own peers, right? Or at least that's the perception. So that's where I think social media becomes really insidious and damaging. And of course, it is all visual. Like Instagram is such a visual platform. Everything is video and images now. So it's really hard. Like there are so many aspects of wellness that are not Instagrammable, right? So I think that is another challenge, right? That it just, by nature of the applications, they are visual applications, and that's what catches our eyes. So you kind of have this amplification of physical appearance because that's what we're seeing, right? We don't have other forms of it, if that makes sense.
Right. Absolutely.
The other thing I just wanted to add one more thing that I think is important to name, which is that we do have a $72 billion diet industry, right? And that is absolutely using social media as an arm of marketing. And so now we see these influencers paired with ads for, diet tea or popsicle, lollipops, whatever they are, like just these things, these tools, right? That are, if you are a younger, a teenager or a younger woman or a young girl, even now at the age that people are using social media and seeing an ad for something that you think you need to have in order to look like the influencer that you follow, that's a very slippery slope into spending a lot of money on diet products in order to change the way that you look. So I think that we just have to name too that the wellness industry is also capitalizing on this trend. And so it can be a very insidious form of marketing when we see, bloggers who are, marketing something like a juice or a detox product or a cleanse or something, right? And people are seeing them and say, oh, I need to do that cleanse so that I can look like this person. When in reality, that might not be the case. And that might lead down a path of disordered eating or to an eating disorder as well. So just want to throw that in there, that there's this big industrial complex as well on social media playing out.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things I talk about too is, I feel like we tend to overcomplicate all this health stuff. And again, there's a lot that goes into it, but I'm very much a back to the basics kind of person. I like things simple. I just, for myself, I mean, on my journey, it was a long and winding journey. And I tried Slim Fast in high school. I mean, issues with struggling with how I looked started, it stemmed back to high school. And I thought, well, back then, maybe if I try Slim Fast, if I try this magic bullet, this will be, what makes me look the way I want to look. And through my long and winding journey, I've discovered that it can really be all this healthcare stuff, all this, the self-care, healthcare, personal care really can be simplified. We just eat healthy most of the time, work out, a few times a week, healthy relationships, all that. It's really back to the basics. And I think that in society here, we've overcomplicated it, with it involves many different interrelated industries, such as the weight loss industry, pharmaceutical industry, healthcare, and all of that. And it focuses more on reactive. I mean, so many different directions we can go here. But again, my point is just, it's back to the basics, right? That's our answers are always simple, right? Not easy, but just simplify. If we just simplify and go back to some basic principles, we can get the majority of the way there.
And back to our own knowledge, like our own body's cues around this stuff, right? Because that's what also complicates it is believing that someone else knows better than us for our own body and what we should be putting in our body and when and how much. That's what really gets us tripped up, is believing that all these other options are better for us. And like you said, going to be that magic bullet, when the reality is we do have that knowledge inside us all. It's just been so stuffed down by the culture that we live in and by all of these rules that have been put on us.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the other areas I'd love to talk about is, as we've touched on, or as we've talked about, there's obviously so much more to us than our physical selves, right? So as I know, part of this process is decreasing the focus on our physical selves and celebrating other aspects of ourselves. Like you said, with the state of the world, even absent a pandemic, there's still so many other things we could be putting our time and energy towards. So as we start to decrease the focus on our physical self, what are some other areas of our lives that we could be ramping up? What are some other areas, that people could start to pour their energy into instead of their physical self?
Yeah, I mean, so a lot of what happens in working with our clients is that they come to us really overwhelmed, thinking about food and body constantly, really depleted, low energy, cloudy thinking. And as they basically refeed themselves and, actually start to heal physically and emotionally from dieting, the amount of time and energy and mind space that floods back into their lives is incredible. Because typically the food is just the surface, right? The relationship with food and body is it's like the blinking neon sign saying something needs attention, right? There's a spiritual need that is not being met, right? That's been overshadowed by this dieting. And so that looks different for everyone. We've had women wake up one day and get rid of their shitty boyfriend because they realize that they're not getting what they need and want from their relationship. We've had women, after being home for years with kids, decide that it's time for them to go out and have a career and a thought, like, something to focus on other than just their family, something for themselves. We've had people, just change their lives, move, like there's meet new friends, pick up new hobbies. It's just, these are the meaningful pieces of our lives, right? Of course, taking care of our physical health is important. Like, we're health coaches, right? We don't want to downplay the idea of our physical health. We just want to dissociate it from weight and appearance, right? But there are all these other areas: our spirituality, creativity, learning, growth, relationships, sometimes our finances, right? There's a lot of correlations between dieting and budgeting, right? And how we respect and care for our money as we do our bodies, right? So there's all these other areas of life that are more meaningful and bring us real joy and purpose, that we hadn't been able to focus on because we were engaged in this never-ending battle against food in our bodies all the time, zapping us of all of our energy and mind space. So it's really different for everybody, but it's literally our favorite part of the program when people have those realizations and start to focus on other things. We know they're really making progress at that point.
Yeah, I would just to like give your listeners a really specific example of this. Actually, our marketing director went through our program, and she was someone who had a really successful career and then had kids and decided to stay home. And in the process, really started to put all of her focus and all of her time into dieting and into doing the same sort of cycle of restriction over and over again and planning the workouts and all of these, behaviors around food and dieting. And when she came to work with us, a huge challenge for her was trying to get back to a body that she used to be in, believing that a former version of herself was better, right? That she wanted to constantly be working to get to that place because she had a nostalgia for a former body. And so the work with her was really identifying what is it about that past version of yourself that you are yearning for, that is, filling a void of some sort. And she realized that sense of accomplishment or working on a goal was really meaningful for her, and kind of started to connect the dots that she did, miss having a career that she spent a lot of focus on and was ambitious, working toward goals and working on a team. So after going through the program, and she had a really wonderful experience and just made amazing progress, she came to us and said, I want to work with you. I want to work on this mission. So she's part of our team now. She's amazing. I'm sure she's going to listen at some point to this. Her name is Kimberly, but just a perfect example of this idea that we spend so much of our time and focus on changing our body or on diet-oriented goals when it's really something underneath that we're missing, that there's a void that we are serving, that with dieting behaviors, when that's really not what our soul, for lack of a cheesier term, needs.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Thank you. And so, the program is obviously super, super powerful. And this would be a great time for you guys to tell everyone how they can get in touch with you directly if they would like to.
Sure. I mean, you can find us at wellnesslately.com. That's our website. We're on Instagram, wellness_lately. And we're on Facebook. We have a great private Facebook group where we give intuitive eating support. So you can just search Wellness Lately. It's called the Food Freedom Collective. So those are really our main spots. If I'm forgetting any, Bridget.
We have podcasts as well. Same name, Wellness Lately.
Right.
That thing we spend 50% of our time on.
Thank you for reminding them of that.
No. So we have a weekly show where we talk about some of this stuff in a lot more detail, and we have some interviews as well. If any of this is resonating, we have a bunch of free offers we can share with you. And, our coaching program is really our signature way of helping people who are stuck in this cycle. And we are obviously happy to chat with anyone who this is ringing a bell for, who it's resonating for, but those are the places to start as far as getting into it and getting some free info for sure.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that and for being here today. I wish we could chat for a few more hours. I love that conversation, and still so much. I feel like we've just barely even scratched the surface.
Yeah,
that's how it usually goes. Yeah.
That's said, still so much valuable information that was shared by both of you today. So thank you very much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having
us. It was great to chat with you.
Yeah, it was great to spend this time with you too. And I look forward to staying in touch. And to all of our viewers and listeners, thank you to you as well. I so appreciate you being here. As you know by now, time is a choice, is one of my beliefs. And I'm grateful that you have carved time out of your day to be here and share this time with me and Dana and Bridget. So I would also love to invite you to my Facebook group, liveauthentically.today/FB, and check out a copy of my book when you have a chance. So thanks, everyone, and have a great day.